Super Bowl 2 days from now in Tampa. We are joined now by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Governor, are we looking good for the Super Bowl? How would you assess how the week's gone so far?
Well, look, we're just excited to be able to have a home game for the Super Bowl. Now, I think it's the first time, and certainly there's never been a team to win the Super Bowl on their home field. And so you got a guy like Tom Brady who's really supercharged the franchise. He's accomplished more than anyone could hope to accomplish, but he wants to do more, and this would be, in some respects, winning a Super Bowl on your home field at age 43 for your seventh in the career. I got to think it's one of the best team sports achievements if it's able to happen, and probably rivals our undefeated season with the Dolphins back in the early 70s. And so I think there's just a lot of anticipation. I think people are really excited. And I think, look, last year when it was in Miami, I predicted the Chiefs. I thought that they were the best team. I thought they had the best quarterback, and obviously that prediction was right. I watched the game earlier, the Week 12 between the Bucs and the Chiefs, and although if you look at the score, 27-24, really wasn't that close. I mean, the Chiefs were definitely the better team that day, but I'll tell you, the Bucs haven't lost since then. They beat teams who ran the table on them in the regular season, like New Orleans. They were able to beat them. They beat Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau. I think the Bucs are going to win, and I think it's going to probably be one of the biggest things that we've seen in the state of Florida in our whole sports history.
You guys have been absolutely instrumental in the state of Florida in the return of sports, and I'll probably miss some, but let me just kind of run through for people out there who have forgotten, and I want to get your take on it. You had WrestleMania, which was the first thing that really happened back in April of last year that originated from, I think, the Orlando area. Obviously, the bubble in the NBA. I believe you were the first place to have a NASCAR race or close to it. Maybe they started in South Carolina. You just mentioned that you had last year's Super Bowl before all this craziness started, but you had the national championship game with Alabama, and now you're going to have the Super Bowl. And I believe you even said, hey, if Japan decides they can't have the Olympics, we're willing to have the Olympics here. Why is it, and how important has it been to Florida and also the nation to have all of these sporting events taking place, and how proud are you that they have taken place inside your state?
Your life is just much different knowing that sports is being played. If you go back to the end of March and April, it was like kind of a void, and it really, I think, added to just the misery of where we were dealing with coronavirus. And I also would mention UFC in Jacksonville. That was their first time back in the United States. We want them to be back in Florida very soon as well. And then we did the Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Tom Brady, and Peyton Manning, which got like 8 million viewers for that. And something we're really, really proud of is we went over the summer when they were trying to stop high school sports, and we said, not on our watch. These kids want to play. They're going to play. And I was actually just last week out in the Panhandle awarding the Governor's Sports Medal to Florida's Mr. Football. He was a quarterback for Niceville High School. He had been a really good baseball player, but he hadn't really rose to stardom in football. And his dad told me, he's like, look, if you didn't help us get the season going, now he's got all these scholarship offers. He had this great, remarkable season. And I just think about, we did that for thousands and thousands of athletes on the youth level and the high school level. And I tell them when I would talk to the kids, because I would go to some of the playoff games, and we had the state championships were all at Doak Campbell here in Tallahassee. I told them, I said, it's always going to be something you remember. You worked hard to get here. Enjoy it, but enjoy it even more, because if you were in Los Angeles, you'd be on your couch right now. You would not be allowed to play. And so you don't take it for granted. And I think they did. I think they really appreciate it. The parents appreciate it. So from Little League to high school to college to pro, we've had more sports going on in the state of Florida than any state in the country, and we're proud of it.
I think you did a remarkable job in general. I know we've had you on the show a couple of different times. But how frustrating is it to you? I know you're responsible for the state of Florida, but how frustrating is it to you as just an American to look around? You mentioned L.A. There are lots of cities out there, Chicago, my hometown of Nashville, where they're finally getting back. But the fact that in June, the pediatricians, the Association of Pediatricians said, hey, kids need to be back in school. They aren't primary spreaders of this virus. We can all return to school safely. And there are many places out there now as we come up on February, a year of schools being shut starting in March, that still aren't open. I mean, it's madness, isn't it?
It is one of the biggest policy failures in modern American history. And the data, as you say, is overwhelmingly clear. We knew this back in May. Look, in March, we did know in March that the kids were less likely to suffer significant illness from this, but we didn't know what role they played in spreading it through the community. Well, by the time we got to May, we had examples of schools being open all over the world, and it was clear kids are at low risk, and they're not big spreaders of this, particularly the younger kids. And so we resolved at that time, look, we've got to get the kids back in school. We told parents, look, if you want to do the remote, if you're more comfortable with that, that's fine. Now, that's not really evidence-based if your kid's healthy, but I understand it. But a lot of parents want their kids in person, and a lot of the kids want to get back in person. And the thing that I would hear the most from parents and superintendents and teachers was, yes, the academics are going to be better. Yes, all this other, but they said, you know what? The kids are happy again. My kids were miserable when they weren't able to see their friends, when there wasn't school going on. Now that they're back in person, everything's better. And so I think about the long-range consequences of having kids out of school for a year, and some may be a year and a half or close to 2 years. There's some of these unions that are fighting to return until 2022. And so you're going to look at a lot of these jurisdictions aren't going to go back until the fall at the earliest of 2021. Some are going to try to ride it out even longer than that. And I think that is absolutely tragic. Florida, 100% of parents have the option to send their kids in person for school. We obviously have all the activities and the athletics, and the data bears out that was right decision. In fact, there's some areas we've looked at where if you count cases for school-age kids, they actually are higher for the remote as a percentage. And the kids, when they do get infected, tend to get infected in the community, not even in the school. So this is pure politics and ideology by the people who are keeping schools closed, and that really goes all the way to the White House. So they're hemming and hawing on this because they don't want to upset these very powerful unions in places like California and Illinois.
It's frustrating to me because Joe Biden ran on, we're going to be the party of science. And as you just said, the data and the science is abundantly clear. There is zero argument, as the CDC director of the White House just said herself, there is zero evidence whatsoever for schools to be shut down anywhere. And as you have said, sports are a big part of getting people back to normalcy. But school and being able to play sports are massively important to the well-being and psychological development of so many kids out there across the entire nation.
Yeah, and I just think when I was growing up, if you had just taken, and I played a lot of sports, but baseball was my thing. If you took baseball away from me, I would have done worse in school. I would have gotten in way more trouble. That's just the reality. And I just shudder to think next year, 2 years, 3 years, this is going to be a slow-rolling disaster in the communities where the kids were put in the back of the line and where their needs and well-being were ignored. And I think you're going to see a contrast. Unfortunately, you're going to see states like Florida and Georgia who put the students and parents first. Our kids are going to do better as a result of that decision. And it's amazing the number of people Florida people are coming to Florida now. I mean, they're like, look, you're the free state. I got businesses coming. I got people investing. I'll have friends in certain parts of Florida that say people will just call them and say, hey, I want to buy your house. They're like, well, I'm not selling my house. They're like, well, I'll give you a lot of money for it. So you see this really significant boom developing. But I had a number of people I've run into who leave from California, Washington, Illinois, because the schools are closed. So they're working remotely maybe for their business. They're like, well, why would I live there if I can live here? So they come, they get their kids in school, and to a man they'll say, best decision we ever made. Kids doing well, we're happy, and Florida's doing it right.
It is amazing, and we're here in Tennessee, and our kids have been in school too, but my kids at the midway point, parents were so fed up in New York and California and Illinois in particular. that their kids now started school in our school district here. My kids are in public school at the halfway point. They finally just had enough. A lot of people left in the summer, but they finally just threw up their hands, over this whole teacher union not wanting to go back, the fact that people won't look at the actual data, and said, I'm leaving. And you're seeing it happen all over Florida, all over Texas. I mean, people want to have a normal life. And the point to me that really kind of gets brought home is, look at the difference between how Governor Newsom in California has treated Disneyland and how you guys have treated Disney World. I brought my family down, Governor, right before Christmas. We stayed at the hotel at Universal Studios. I've got young kids. We spent the time at the park. It was fabulous. Everybody had to wear a mask. It felt completely safe. They were giving out hand sanitizer everywhere. You guys figured out a way to open all of your parks, and I believe even in the New York Times, they've said they haven't been able to trace a single case of COVID from the amusement parks opening, and they now are going on nearly a year in California. Think of the tens of thousands of jobs lost with Disneyland still not open.
And that's the thing that I think people may not appreciate who aren't as involved in these areas. Yes, the jobs for the companies for sure. Disney, they got a lot of great employees. Universal, SeaWorld, all these parks. But there are so many family-owned small businesses who are part of that ecosystem that if the parks are closed, then a lot of their business totally declines. And so we were able to get obviously the Disney folks and the other theme park folks back, but then all those family-owned business, that was a huge lifeline, because if the parks weren't open, then they would have probably gone out of business. And the parks closed voluntarily. We never closed them. And basically, once things started, we had a couple weeks where people were really on edge. And then once things started to settle down a little bit in April, I told them, I said, we need to get you guys back. I think it's important. It's important for the economy. It's important for people's well-being and opportunity. But it's also a statement that if Disney shuttered, I just think that that's something that people look at and they'll say, geez, the things aren't going well. So we wanted to do it. And yeah, as you said, there's been no outbreaks linked to there. It's doing well. People enjoy being there, and we're going to keep doing that. But I think the problem, I think this all goes back to the schools, because I think if they were to open Disney in California, the next question that would get asked was, okay, well, why don't you have schools open? And I think their policy is that they just don't want to open the schools, and so therefore Disney and some of these other, I think, businesses are casualties of that, because it would just be untenable to have theme parks open but not have kindergarten classrooms open.
We're talking to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Super Bowl is in Tampa this weekend. The state of Florida has been instrumental in the return of sports and also the return of normalcy in general in our country. What do you think about the media coverage of you and your state compared to the praise that Andrew Cuomo and the state of New York got? I believe recently maybe people are starting to recognize that New York has done a disastrous job across the board. But you were, I would say, probably the most criticized governor in the entire country for your response in Florida. Yet if you look at the data, arguably, especially if you consider the elderly population that is prominent in the state of Florida, there's no big state for certain that has done better than Florida. Yet compared to California and New York, where Governor Newsom and Andrew Cuomo were praised to the high heavens, you guys have dominated them, both on keeping the economy open and also keeping kids in school and keeping people safe.
So our unemployment rate is about 0.5% below the national average, even as a tourism-based economy. I mean, if tourism was 100%, we would be even lower. Our budget, I have not touched one penny from our rainy day fund because we cut spending, but then our revenues are growing far beyond expectations because we're open and people see that. And yet our COVID mortality per capita is less than the national average and less than 25 states. And so we focused on protecting vulnerable people, both at the beginning with nursing homes and then now our seniors first approach to vaccination, where we're doing 65 and up. Those are the folks that need it the most. So we've done probably over 1.5 million vaccinations of seniors. I think we've done 31% of all seniors have gotten a shot, and we'll rip as soon as the feds send it to us, we get it out there. So I think it's been a more effective approach. But look, the national media, these guys have a political agenda. They are very partisan, and if my party affiliation were different, I would get different treatment. But here's the thing. I think what voters want to see is a leader, and if they throw bombs at you, stand your ground, do the right thing. And my view was always to Floridians, look, if people are going to come after me and my job as a price of me standing up for saving you and your job, that's what a leader has to do. And I will sign up for that every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
You mentioned that you were a big baseball player growing up. I believe you played baseball at Yale. There's lots of talk right now about what spring training is going to look like. What can you tell us about what spring training is going to look like in the state of Florida so far as you've been informed, if at all?
Well, so what I've told Major League Baseball is you're here, do your spring training. We want you here. We want you having your games, and we want you to have fans. And you're not going to get any beef from the state of Florida on any of that. I don't think there's any evidence that being at these outdoor venues is causing anything with coronavirus. By the time we get into March, we're going to have probably 2 million plus seniors vaccinated, and obviously, other folks will start getting it soon with Johnson & Johnson, some of this other stuff. So I think we've got to do it and let people make their own decisions about what kind of venues they want to be in. But from our perspective, we think it's something that's good for the state. We did miss out last year, and it's something a lot of Floridians and visitors look forward to. So they have the ability to do it here. I know they're getting pressure from the White House and all this other stuff, but I think this is something that people will be excited to go. And here's the thing. When you don't have the fans, it really does hurt interest in the sport. I mean, the ratings were down for most of the sports this year, I think. And I think it's a function of if you're not able to go watch games in person, then you just don't get as invested in the season. And spring training is obviously the start of that, where there's a lot of hopes for a lot of teams, and we've got a lot of great organizations down here. So I look forward to be able to go to spring training games and be able to root on our great major league players.
Well, and obviously, if you're expecting and willing to have fans for spring training, the expectation would be for the Florida sports teams, baseball teams, you would have fans in the stands for those games as well once they start playing in Miami and Tampa, everywhere.
Without question, we need to do that, and I think we will do that. And if you look at how the corona is happening, it's going down all across the country, really sharply in every region. And I think that with that going in that direction, then the vaccines, I think, really prevent this from being a real serious epidemic spike like we saw in places like New York last March, like we saw in L.A. over the winter. And so I think we'll be in really good shape. And the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is going to get approved at the end of February. I thought they could do that sooner, but that's going to be a one-dose vaccine. And then Pfizer is upping their production. So we'll start to see a lot of vaccine dropped probably as we get into the middle of March and April. And pretty much everyone who wants it, I think, is probably going to be able to have it at that point. Now there's not enough vaccine to meet demand, but I think that's going to change very quickly. So, and then people can make their decisions about if they want to go to a ball game, go. If you don't, that's fine. But I think we need to get moving here on this stuff.
By the time we get to football season of next year, and you've got the Super Bowl in Florida in Tampa in 2 days, do you expect full stadiums? Like, I know you're a college football fan, too. Would you like to see Florida State, Florida, as well as Miami and Tampa Bay full in the fall?
Absolutely. Full stadiums and tailgating and everything. One of the things I noticed, Clay, on this was like some of the schools and NFL would not have tailgating, right? It's like, we don't want people, milling around and doing all this. Well, what would happen is instead of being in a parking lot, eating hot dogs and drinking beer, they'd be piled into apartments and homes doing the same damn thing, but probably in a more, quote, risky environment from a corona perspective. And so I think you need to let people enjoy these experiences. By the fall, there should be no reason why we can't do this. We'll even have a few more vaccines available for people by then. And, by the way, the media never talks about the monoclonal antibody therapeutics that are out by Eli Lilly and Regeneron. If you get infected and you're high risk and you get that IV immediately, that thing nukes corona. I mean, it's closest thing we have to a cure. You got to do it earlier. You can't wait till someone's in the ICU. But that's a phenomenal development that we've now had for a couple months. And so, yeah, we need to do it. There's a certain current of our culture who wants us in a perpetual lockdown status. They want people to wear masks forever. They want there to be social distancing effectively, without end. And I just think the rest of us just need to put our foot down and say, not on our watch.
I think you've done an incredible job, Governor. I know you already said that you think the Bucs are going to find a way to win. What do you expect? I assume you will be there on Sunday. What does it mean to the nation at large for the NFL to have completed their entire season and played every game and then finish it with you guys in the state of Florida? Much like, to be fair, the Alabama-Ohio State game finished in Miami. You guys have basically finished both the college and the NFL seasons and really kind of put a bow on what I think is an incredible accomplishment for both college and pro football.
And it's a testament to actually following the science, following the data, understand that sports was low risk, understand it's important to our culture. But you remember all those people, May, June, July, August, who were complaining, saying this was going to be a disaster. All those people were wrong. And when Tom Brady hoists that Lombardi trophy on Sunday night, that's going to punctuate a great comeback for sports, but it's also going to show all those critics who put ideology ahead of science and facts were dead wrong about sports.
Great job, Governor. Keep it up for the state of Florida, and we'll be watching on Sunday to see who hoists that trophy for sure. Appreciate it.
Great. See ya.